mentioned on one of your posts, or on one of the slides that had W-9 required no on many events.
Yeah.
Craigslist thing. So how do you deal with that sort of like legal, tax, whatever, when you have a bunch of people working?
Well, offshore, it's very easy.
Okay.
Labor laws are not asking you to do that much. Onshore, if you use like some payroll system, the Intuit pay cycle or Zenefits or something like that, they will give you some boxes to check. It is annoying. There's like a little bit of work for every new person who you involve when they're local. If you use the freelancer networks, they absorb some of that payment stuff, but they also take some money for it. So often we use it to trial lots of people, and then once people become strong contributors and they're spending lots of time, we bring them into our own payment system. So some people get bank wires, some people get shares, some people get salary with tax deductions and everything.
Thank you for the lecture. And maybe unknown, like in a certain way, my business is talent sourcing, and from what I've seen, a lot of these marketplaces, I think the next wave of businesses is the companies called like TopTel. You might have heard of TopTel, and
yeah.
You're more like a middleman. That's what we do. So we kind of take a lot of the techniques that you talk about, what you do, and the open hiring is a specifically big one. So we'll basically do that for our clients, so they don't have to do it. So basically, we make them go through a 3-day test, as we call it, open hire people. And so basically, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, I think people see it, like companies see the challenges there for going through these marketplaces, and that's why Elance doesn't exist anymore, and those type of things. And kind of going into more, I call it middleman type of. And so you have these companies that are basically doing these things for their clients.
Yeah, it's a good comment.
So I really like the open hire strategy. And I guess my question is, so if you just start something from scratch and you just open hire someone to help you build it, how can you guarantee that you have a good start? I mean, if the few engineer you hire just cannot ship something good, then you won't have a good start to continue. So how can you like solve this?
Yeah, I mean, the question was, when you're kind of big, you can make mistakes, but if your very first couple of hires, if they screw you over, it could be painful and set you back a lot. And so, I mean, the theme of my comments, though, was the very first task you assign the very first person should be so small, and the amount of time that you're willing to wait for them is so short that your maximum cost is quantified right up front. You're hiring some person for 5 hours for $15 an hour, and you're going to check on the work tomorrow. So in calendar time, you're going to lose a day. In dollars time, if they produce some crap, you're going to lose $70. And if the quality of the stuff is not right, you'll see tomorrow and you'll change it, you'll fix it, you'll spend money again. So it can't be that big. And after a certain number of those iterations on those cards, you'll start finding some people that you want to keep. Early on, I would hire and assign the same card to 5 people, 8 people at a time. Overwhelmingly, the reason people fail is not because they do it poorly, it's because they're actually not ready to work. Like, overwhelmingly, that's the reason. They're just in the market, pasting something in, bidding for stuff. They don't really feel like working, they have some other job, or they're in school, or they don't care. And if they're not ready to work right now, do my stuff right now, then fuck them. The best people, they like reply, and an hour later, they're like, okay, I'm done. And then another hour later, they did another thing, and another thing. And they're up all night, because for me, it's like noon, and they're, whatever time, and they're just doing stuff. And then they stay up all night, and I have to meter back their level of enthusiasm, because they start working continuously. And I'm like, dude, you're insane. Stop for a little while.
How do you retain people like that?
Just pay them. Give them lots of hours and pay them. People won't work. The idea is that they want to work. Okay. You do work for money. And the amazing thing about the environment we're in here is that you like have to buy them lunch or something, but they're working because they want money.
So you just say, hey, you're still at the max of 15 an hour. We're going to keep you there, but I want you to work on these 5 cards.
Over time, there are some softer benefits. The core of it really is just money. Maybe you pay them a little bit more. It's never going to double or triple, very infrequently. There's a couple of guys that are a standard deviation above the mean. The benefit of working on a project that gives you lots of hours, that's working on interesting cutting edge technologies, and that is like, exciting, like it's in the US, it's venture backed, it's whatever. Those are all amazing. Think about what these dudes are doing. Like, they're back home in their place. There's like, I don't know, like a hospital in the town where they could be like fixing the Wi-Fi. Like that's the job they probably were considering. And if they were super lucky, they could work for some crappy consulting firm or something doing whatever. And now they get to work for like some, you know, tech whatever on these cutting edge, la la la. It's like very rewarding for them. On their own hours, without having to report to any bureaucratic loser, no meetings. Like it's quite amazing. It's a very liberating style of work for certain people for whom their personality is suited, you know.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Working with the overseas freelancers, have you ever experienced or should there be a concern about the freelancers trying to hold you up for additional money depending on how you task them with long-term?
If you give people big projects, you take risks. So if you say to somebody, and this is the traditional form of hiring these dudes, it's like, oh, I want to build an app, we'll get to this first milestone, here's all the features it's going to have, you know, do all this work, we'll agree on a price, there's some estimate. Now you've spent a month waiting for it or a few weeks, so calendar time is getting burnt. Your own sort of psychic investment in a very complete description of the product has happened. You've waited a lot of hours in. And then you might have given them some upfront payment, right? You give them 30% or 50%. Now the 2 weeks or the month passes. If I were that dude, I also would call you up and fuck you. I would say, yeah, it's kind of done, but it's going to take another few weeks. Number's not right. Here's another 30%. Send me that 30% now. Whatever. And your host. Because as your commitment gets deeper, you're stuck. So you don't do that. You do what I told this guy. You say, you know, give me a homepage, give me a button. And then after they've made like 20 things, you find out, is this a person who is able to work on this immediate cycle? You probably aren't going to be paying them every day after the first little bit. You can pay them every week or every few weeks, something like that. But you should mutually, neither side should ever be the hostage of the other. They'll have worked a few days, and if you screw them over, fine, they lost a few days. You know, they work on a card for a while, just throw the card away and start with a different card.
So
Actually, this guy here.
So how do you keep the balance in terms of figuring out how many people you have on your team full-time versus freelance?
So how do you balance full-time versus freelancers? We just do it on, I really am not managing to that, the mix of hours on people. There are some guys who are very good, and as many cards as we can give them, they do, and we let them work full-time. There are some folks who are really good, but they seem to have other jobs, I think, and so they just work 20 hours or something in the evenings after their normal job, because we pay better, and those guys stay at whatever hours they're doing. And then there are some people that are cyclical needs, like designers. You know, every once in a while we want to like redesign some stuff, and we'll do 10 or 20 hours of design. Database stuff. Ops and DevOps kind of, those people have very limited but extended. It's like 2 hours a day every day. They have to like check and do some stuff. So it just depends on the job. The job dictates it. Any other folks? Otherwise I'll come back to you.
Where are you getting? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Designers. You said there was a specialty site you didn't mention.
Oh yeah, designers. Designers are harder to find. Behance is one. Dribble is another one. There's something called Forest, which I don't really use. Those are places to get designers. The normal networks also have designers, but they have like super crappy designers. And the thing with the designers is a little less straightforward than the process I showed you. They're a little bit more like, you know, fancy, and you have to sort of talk to a bunch of them to get them going. But I have found there are just tons and tons of very talented designers because their tools are increasingly inexpensive. You get a Mac, you get Photoshop, whatever, you use some cheaper than Photoshop tools. And there are some dominant styles and looks that these guys are all taking and remixing. And you should be able to pay like, you know, $25 or $30 an hour per designer. You pay a little bit more per hour because they work fewer hours for you. You could never have a full-time designer unless you had a really complex project.
Do you have any unique hiring techniques or people are part of your core team?
Yeah. I hired all non-experienced, non-product manager people and tried them out. And if they could figure things out, then I let them stay, roughly speaking. Specifically, I hired them on the Craigslist writers market. So the same place where journalists are like trying to find a job to write like a blog post for $30, I posted there saying, hey, if you know how to read and write and you're a thoughtful kind of interesting person, I have a job for you that's not a writing job. It's for this tool that we're making, here's some stuff that we do with it. If you're interested, give me a call, write me an email, and I'll ask you to do some stuff. We'll pay you for it. And if you're interested and you like it and you feel you can be successful and we feel the same, then we'll give you some more work. And that is how it started with everybody who worked for us. We have, I guess there's 4 full-time product managers, and maybe we had hired 10. So like 6 out of the 10 didn't work out at different stages along the way. There's someone I missed around here somewhere. Yeah.
One thing, so this, just so I can understand, this can be applied to the company that I'm working on, where electricity infrastructure play, where we're basically doing software to control batteries. So that is, kind of, obviously we're doing everything in JavaScript and Python from a code perspective, but I'm just a little bit, I buy into what you're saying, I'm just a little bit reluctant to kind of send this out, little tasks to everybody who says, well, here it is, start with just a simulator, then show me how you discharge a battery, because eventually that's going to kind of go on to an actual electrical infrastructure, so it's kind of,
Okay.
But
he's asking the question, if it's like a highly sensitive piece of infrastructure you're building eventually, would you feel comfortable starting, without knowing anything? And I mean, I would.
You would have no problem with anything.
Well, I presume that whatever other hiring process you have is also susceptible to failure. And I presume that you and your colleagues are also not, sort of in possession of perfect knowledge. So you're all, are all fallible. So given the expectation of fallibility in your team and work process, you will build for yourself a quality assurance process in the workflow somewhere. So if there's going to be some kind of QA, then it shouldn't matter that much what you put into it in the front end. You will put something in the front end, make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better. At some point, judge it ready to be QA'd, then QA it, and if it fails, you'll have to make it better and put it back in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to start at some stage. So my principle would be, there isn't any reason to rule it out. You get the advantage of more people, more scalable pool of supply, low cost, 24-hour time cycle, and freedom from like traditional management. Those are the advantages. Then you have the disadvantage of having less resolution on each person. So, and there are other disadvantages connected to that. You can choose.
Okay. How do you judge a developer's soft skills, like business, maturity, communications? You don't.
I told you, I've never talked to most of them. I have no idea. And some of them, I mean, they need to be able to write like an answer to a question in text, English, on comments. A lot of them use fucking Google Translate. They are not reading and writing in English. So,
Right.
I mean, they got to show up. Like, I assign you a card, you do it. If you don't do it, you're gone. I don't have to wait for you either, because you're gone. So we have an understanding, me and the team, And I also don't have to convince anybody of anything. I don't have to say, oh, like, I really feel this button should go over here because, like, oh my God, it would be so cool. I did some user testing. Forget it. Everyone they do the work. And that's like an important difference in the work culture. It's kind of annoying being in like a Silicon Valley.
The process is like a machine created because there are a lot of people, they start off really good. They can pass your test, but then a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and you start to, and then suddenly they don't show up and stuff like that.
Why would someone who's good get bad? They're tired, bored, bad weather, food poisoning. I mean, somebody who's good should get better as they work. And that is, in fact, what we observe. Like, the guys that are pretty good, some of them become amazing. And some of them get capped because they're busy, whatever. One of them got pregnant and had to leave for a few months. Like, shit happens. But they're not like machines that break. They're people. They get better.
So 2 quick questions. One is, you mentioned a few sites for designers. Do you have any sites you'd like for developers? And the other question is, obviously you go through a process of letting people go quite frequently. How does that process work? I'm sure it's a few short sentences that you said, but how does that?
It's not working out. We're removing you from the project.
Okay.
Thank you for your work.
Okay. But first you say like, hey, I noticed you haven't worked on this. Because like the lady who was pregnant found out probably because...
Well, she told me. She was like, oh, it's been great working on the project. Probably the next few months. I'm not going to be available that much. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, people who don't do a task, you don't need to fire them because they didn't do anything. You just need to remove them. People who are working and doing terrible work, like that is a different class of problem case. Those people are annoying because they've been trained on responsiveness. Like one of the deceptions in the system, and this is true in normal life, right? Like in your boring office job that you watch on television, like that job. There's some person sitting there, or they're in the meeting. They're like, "Oh, I have a question. Let's take a step back." Just completely useless commentary. Those people exist, and it's harder to remove them. But in my little world, I'm just like, "Yo, this card didn't move. I don't like how this works. Either fix it by tomorrow, or I'll give you a different card." I have some level of kind of humane treatment of these people. But then if things don't work, I'm just like, it's not working, goodbye. And they didn't quit their jobs to work for me. You know, they didn't move from, you know, the country to get an apartment, break up with their, like, no sacrifice was made by these people when they come to work for us. By the time I might ask that of someone, they've been with us quite a bit. And I know I like them already.
I think the question was, what are your favorite freelance sites?
Oh yeah, the other part of it. Yeah, no, they're all fine. Yeah, Elance, Upwork, Odesk, that's like one site. There's one called freelancer.com, European kind of nexus. Guru, sure. And I bet there's more. And if I spent some time and energy, like, there's more. I mean, yeah, there's a lot.
Was Craigslist for writers?
Not for engineers, yeah.
For Craigslist for writers.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the way to think about it is like, where have I heard that a specific profession is really fucked? Like, what kind of business has a supply-demand imbalance? You know, like, oh, if I want to write a screenplay, should I try to hire one like here, or should I post on the LA Craigslist? Probably the LA Craigslist. Or like, I hear there's high unemployment in Spain. I bet I could get a bunch of engineers from there, or some designers or something. Definitely the Eastern Europeans, they're super interested. The Russians and Ukrainians are dying for any kind of work. I mean, the stuff you read in the newspaper is true, and you just need to access it through the different marketplaces. If I could read and write more languages, I would build a bigger franchise in Southeast Asia, Vietnam and Thailand. I think there's tons of really interesting, smart people that are well connected. And the fourth biggest city in Vietnam, called Da Nang City, we have 10 out of our 40 engineers there. A lot of referrals happened, but apparently it's like the internet city of Vietnam.
One quick question on the testing live. Do you have any recommendations on the, especially on the mobile side, like iOS? Like, what are you doing to get it right into the product right away?
You need to choose one of the I'll just tell you one to use. It's called Fabric.
Okay.
And you tell your developer, hey dude, put the build in Fabric and send it to me. And you get an email and there's a link, you click it, it replaces the app that was on your phone with a new app, and you try it out. It should take no delay. Like, it should just be minutes from the time the guy's done to the time you get the build. Any other final thoughts, questions? I sent you that link. The link was on the screen earlier, tiny.cc/. You can ask me more questions and things there.
Thank you.